And believe it or not, I think we ended up having, it was a ridiculous number. We ended up having 8+ plumbers come out there and look at this problem to see if they could figure out what the issue was. What's going on, guys and gals? Kendall here with Minnows for Pros and Joes, helping you simplify the renovation and modeling process. On this channel, we do hands-on product, tool, and gear reviews, as well as renovation tip and strategy videos like this one. So if you like this type of content, hit that subscribe button. In today's video, I'm going to be trying to answer the age-old question, should you buy discounted items? And by items, I mean anything that you're going to be purchasing for your renovation project, and that could be anything from supplies, that can be tools, that can be appliances, etc. Okay, so I'm going to first go over the things that I look at and consider when I'm evaluating whether or not to buy a discounted item, and then I'm also going to share with you my overall feelings on buying discounted items, and then I'm also going to share several different stories that will help you understand why my perspective is what it is with regards to buying discounted items. So let's jump into it. So the first thing I want to do is define what a discounted item is for the purposes of this video. So when I say discounted items, I don't mean items that are 5% off or 10% off or 15% off in some situations. I'm talking about something that's got a deep discount on it. We're talking about, 40%. 45%, 50%, 60%, 70%. You get my point. Deeply discounted items, okay? And so the first thing that I do when I'm evaluating a discounted item and I'm trying to determine whether or not it's something that I'd be interested in purchasing, I'm going to check reviews, right? And I'm going to go beyond just counting the number of stars that I see on reviews. I want to delve into those reviews and I want to take a close look at what's being said with regards to that user's experience. I also want to try to figure out if I can get a gauge on whether or not this person who is using this has experience with using other items or tools of this caliber or materials like this, etc., 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 what their experience level is overall, okay? Because that helps me determine how to weight their review against others. Another thing that I also may do is look at message boards. If it's an item that is being discussed that way, then I want to look at everything that I can in a nutshell and just try to get an overall feel for what I'm getting myself into. So another reason why you don't want to just base your evaluation based on number of stars is that frequently now more people are leaving reviews, and frequently they're leaving reviews that are in response to something that occurred with regards to that transaction that doesn't directly relate to how the item they purchased performed. They may have had a bad customer service experience with the ordering of it. The package may have gotten lost in the mail. There may not have been a certain brochure or pamphlet in the box. It could be anything, but frequently people leave reviews that are negative that don't directly speak to how that item performed. And just as often, you sometimes see people who are leaving a review, shortly after unboxing the item without actually having used it long enough to be able to give a real in-depth review on how it performed. So kind of want to make sure that we sift through those and get down to the real meaty, thorough reviews. So the next thing that I want to do, and before I jump to the next thing, I want to share a quick story. So about 1.5 years ago, I was in a big box retailer and I was looking at a pressure washer that was there for sale. So typically in big box stores, they'll have pressure washers that typically cap out price-wise probably around $700 or so, okay? And they'll go all the way down to maybe just a couple $100. That's typically the range of what's going to be sold in the store. So I happened to go into the store on this given day, and they had a pressure washer in there that was a full retail price of maybe $1,200 or $1,300, and the one they had sitting in there was $600 or $599, something in that range, okay? So that immediately sparked my attention, and I said, well, let me just quickly see how good of a deal this is. And so I went online and I looked at the reviews on this particular item on that retailer's website to try to get a feel for what I was looking at. I looked at reviews on several other websites, as well as message boards. And by doing that, I was able to get a better feel for what type of tool this was. Now, in this particular situation, overall, the reviews were more positive than negative. It wasn't like it was an item that had a 2-star review or a 1-star review. It probably still had a 3.5, 3.8 reviews, somewhere in there. So not great, but not the worst. And so after doing my reading, what I determined was that the issue with this particular pressure washer was that there's some component on it that has a short lifespan. And the way that that particular pressure washer was made, once that part burnt up on it, it renders the machine useless because the cost to repair or replace that item superseded the cost of the machine itself. And so that right there is enough not to buy it. So, which brings me to my next point with regards to looking at items that are deeply discounted. Don't assume that just because the item is being sold in the store, period, that it is worth your money to purchase it. And what I mean by that is the retail stores are businesses, and they're in the business of making money, making a profit, as well as trying to recoup on losses when they can. And so just because they have an item that's there for sale does not mean that you should buy it. It does not mean that it's not garbage. They're gonna cut the price down on it, and they're gonna leave it up to the consumer to determine what's up with it, okay? And so that is your job. You are tasked with determining whether or not this particular item is worth your money and any potential hassles that may arise down the line. Which brings me to my next point, which is you want to try to determine how good the deal really is, okay? And so what I mean by that is the price low enough to justify any issues that may come up down the line? This may be something that's much easier to determine on something like a tool, because a tool is kind of one of those things that's typically always by itself. You know, you can just take it, pick it up, and return it or do whatever you need to do with it. Appliances can be a little bit more problematic, as well as things like fixtures for plumbing and electrical. Those can also present their own issues that you also want to keep in mind. And what I mean by that is if you're going to have to pay someone to install this item, if you're paying someone to do a electrical project for you, or they're going to have to install this item that's deeply discounted, if a problem does arise, you may have costs associated with just removing the item to be able to return it to the store. Exact same thing is going to be true for plumbing fixtures if you're not doing them yourself. And also, you also have the time, of course, of being tied up in trying to deal with that. So you want to look at what the return policy is on those items. As I said, frequently they're going to let you know up front, all sales final, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which means that once you come out and pay and swipe your credit card or put your money down and they give you your receipt, it's done with. The problem is yours. Other times there may be a short window with which you have to evaluate that item and return it or do whatever you're going to do. And they may not always be extremely easy to determine. Okay, so appliances are one of those things that are kind of tricky. If you're buying appliances out of a retail store, frequently they're not selling those appliances directly out of the store. Those appliances end up being shipped out to your location from a warehouse. And typically the warehouse does not actually stock those appliances either. They're coming from a distribution center. And so when the store processes your order, that order goes to the distribution center, and then they drop one widget and it goes to the warehouse, and then it's ready for delivery. So there's several points of contact and moves that appliance has to make before it actually gets to you. And so because of that, it makes it a lot more difficult to return them. That's why frequently if you purchase appliances this way, when the appliances arrive, they're going to bring them into the property, they're going to unbox and install what they can, and they're typically going to ask or require that you look over everything for any type of issues such as scratch, dents, dings, etc., to make sure that everything is good to go before they leave. And if you say everything is good to go, they're going to make you sign a piece of paper which says it's taken possession of these items now, and it's basically now on you. So now I've got another story with regards to appliances. I did a renovation project a few years ago, which was a kitchen remodel, And as part of the project, we're going to be installing an over-the-range microwave, okay? And so before the cabinets were ordered, the project scope slightly shifted, and we ended up having to install a wall-mounted range hood, which is one of the ones that have the walls that slope up and has the chimney that goes up to the ceiling, right? So if you install one of these, you can't install an over-the-range microwave. And so the appliances had already been ordered and delivered. They were part of an appliance package, okay? And so when the time came to return that microwave, which was still unopened and in the box, we ran into issues. We went to the store where the item was actually purchased and paid for, and customer service didn't know what in the world to do with it. They called a manager over. The manager came over. They required that the box be opened so that they could inspect it to see that it hadn't been tampered with, which is, I guess, normal procedure maybe in today's times. In any case, they opened the box up. They could see that it never been unboxed or tampered with, and they immediately said that there was going to be a 15% restocking fee for them to return this brand new microwave, okay? OMG. So what happened from there is a story for a different day. However, I just wanted to make it clear that these type of issues can arise when you're dealing with returning things like appliances. So even though that's a brand new item, it was purchased out of the store, I have a receipt, I cannot return that item to the store and get a full refund. So if you didn't know that, take note of that, especially if you're going to be doing a large project, you're going to be ordering appliances, keep that in mind. So the next thing that I want to impress upon you or delve into a little bit deeper is going to be, does your cost savings outweigh the potential loss for the return? And that goes back to what I was saying before with regards to things like light fixtures and plumbing fixtures. It's a question of whether or not you can be made whole even if there is a return policy in place. And so I'm going to explain this to you by telling you a horror story. Now, this story is a situation that happened to me 10 or 12 years ago. So I had this renovation project that I was doing, full remodel. As part of the scope of work, there was 2 bathrooms that were going to get completely redone. So we got one bathroom that has a tub in it with the tub shower combo with tiles around everything, and the other bathroom has a standalone shower in it. So in both of those bathrooms, we're replacing the shower valves, which is the unit in the wall like this, not this one, but like this. That is what you hold to control the water, and the shower head actually came with it, and the spigot came with one of them for the tub shower combo in any case. So I say all that to say that I was in the market for these fixtures. I happened to go into a big box retailer at that time, and there was an unbelievable deal on these fixtures. And so I snatched them up and went on about my business. And when the time came to install them, I did that. Now keep in mind, I said this was 12 years ago. So we did not have internet on the phones like we have now. The reviews being plentiful online and things like that, that was not a thing. So it was more of a crapshoot on whether or not the item was good or not. It was a name brand and a very well known and respected brand. So it wasn't some type of offshoot or something like that. It was not open box or a return or anything like that. And so once we got those units installed, we got closer to the end of the project and began doing some different testing and working on different things in the house. And we realized that there was an issue with the hot and cold water in the entire house. And so we had replaced the water heater early on in the project. And so we're trying to backtrack and figure out what the problem was, because when we're trying to get hot water at the kitchen sink or at either of the bathrooms, we could never get the water to be totally hot. And we ended up testing everything at the water heater, ended up replacing the water heater more than once. And believe it or not, I think we ended up having, it was a ridiculous number. We ended up having 8+ plumbers come out there and look at this problem to see if they could figure out what the issue was, okay? And ultimately even ended up going in the crawl space of the house and just cutting the copper supply lines in the crawl space just to be able to see and check the temperature of the water that was coming out on the hot side and on the cold side to try and help backtrack where the issue was, okay? So, long story long, the problem was with those discounted shower valves, okay? And the issue that they were having was they were allowing the hot and cold water to mix in the valve. And so this was why you couldn't get an appropriate temperature water anywhere in the house. This is the first time and the only time I've ever seen this happen. I got on the phone with the manufacturer. It's a manufacturer problem because at this point it's already installed. This is going back to what I was saying before, is whether or not the cost savings is worth the potential loss to even do the return. Because the first thing that they said on the phone was, we'll just return it to the store. It's installed in a house with porcelain tile installed over it. You see what I mean? And so what they did do was ended up shipping out some replacement valve cartridges. This is a cartridge in the wall, which apparently was the issue. So they sent out replacement cartridges, and they even went a step further and sent out brand new units because the cartridges they sent out ended up not completely fixing the problem either. So what do you think I did with those new units? I put them over to the side and those things never got used. They still may be somewhere in my possession somewhere, but I just kept them as a reminder of this tough lesson that I learned, which is you need to always check those reviews and make sure that you know what you're getting into before you buy something that is at an extremely discounted rate, because often that could be a red flag that something may not be exactly the way that you wish it was. And so that's a good example of what can happen. So I had to actually pay a plumber to come in and uninstall those old valves and then try to go in there and replace the valves behind the new tile back in the wall. It was a lot of work considering we didn't have to do that had we just gone with a different fixture from the outset. So hopefully you found this video informative. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one.